Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbity Bobbity Books. My name is Ellie and today I am so excited to be filming my spring TBR. So these are all of my top priority books that I'm hoping to get to in the next month or so. Now I don't like to set myself a strict TBR because I do like to mood read, and I find that as soon as I set myself a TBR it feels more like an obligation rather than a hobby. So I much prefer to kind of pick up the books that I'm fancying at the time rather than forcing myself to read something that I'm not in the mood for. That being said, I am a seasonal reader and I do like to set myself a pool of books that I can pull from just to make my decision making a little bit easier and to make sure that I'm getting all of my highest priorities read. So yes, without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight in and start chatting through all the books that I'm super excited to hopefully be picking up in the next month or two. So the first book I'm super excited to talk about because it's a new release that literally came in the post the other day, and that is Gallant by Ve Schwab. So this is the gorgeous Waterstones edition. It's got amazing sprayed edges and it's also signed and has some lovely artwork in the end pages. So this is a book that I actually picked up just because of the author, so I know that I like Victoria Schwab's writing, and obviously this is her newest release. It's the first book in a YA series. I believe it's kind of a paranormal horror type story with a gothic setting, which sounds right up my street. Honestly, I don't know a huge amount about the plot about this one, and I don't want to research it too much because I don't want to spoil myself. But according to the blurb, we follow a 16-year-old girl called Olivia, and she basically gets this letter from her uncle, which is summoning her to his estate, which is called Gallant. But when she arrives, she discovers that the letter was late and her uncle is in fact dead and the estate is empty. And it also says that as Olivia searches for answers about her family, her past, she discovers a dark reflection of everything she knew, an ancient realm where ghosts take form, and the Dark Master sits waiting for her. How good does that sound? I'm so excited to get to this one. It's also not terribly long, which is good because sometimes I get intimidated by really chunky books. The next book that I'm hoping to pick up this spring is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Now this is a standalone adult fantasy that I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about. A lot of people find it really weird and say they didn't really understand what was going on for a lot of the time when they were reading this story, and that just has me intrigued, and I just really wanted to pick this up and give it a go for myself. So all I really know about this story is that we follow our main character Piranesi, who lives in this big magical house, and I believe the whole book is set in this magical house, and we basically follow Piranesi as he explores the house, as he goes from room to room and documents what he finds. And that is honestly all I know. I'm assuming that the author took inspiration from Piranesi, the classical Italian architect, because I know that he is really famous for his artwork that often depicts kind of buildings with lots of staircases and corridors and things. So I'm kind of projecting those images onto this book and expecting that to be the kind of setting that we're going to experience in this story. But yeah, I don't know, we shall see. I think this is the kind of book that's better to go into blind and just kind of experience the journey for yourself, and I can't wait. I'm expecting it to be weird and wonderful, and I'm so excited. The next book that I'm hoping to prioritize is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and that is Neon Gods by Katie Robert. So the reason why I popped this one on my TBR is because I recently read A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, which is also a modern Hades and Persephone retelling, but there were a few things that I didn't get on with that book in terms of the world building and the characters and things. And since I've read that book, I've had quite a few people recommending for me to try this one because apparently this delivers on the Hades and Persephone angsty romance whilst also giving us a really compelling and fun fantasy plot. So yeah, I'm really intrigued about this one. I'm super excited to pick it up when I'm fancying something spicy because I hear it is incredibly steamy, definitely for adults. And yeah, I mean, Persephone is the goddess of spring, so I feel like it's kind of fitting for this season as well. And yeah, I can't wait to get to this one. Next up, we have a book that I've actually talked about quite a few times on my channel that I'm really hoping to prioritize in the next month or so, and that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. So this is a YA fantasy book, and in this story we follow our main character Xin Yin, who is the daughter of the Moon Goddess, and she is basically being hidden from the Celestial Emperor on the moon. And then one day, I believe her power flares and there's some kind of a threat, and Xin Yin is forced to leave her home. And from what I understand, a big focus of this story is on Xingyin trying to get back to her mother and trying to rescue her. I think there's also a little bit of a romance in here, and it just sounds like such a fun fantasy story. I've also heard that the writing is incredibly whimsical and reads like a fairy tale, which sounds right up my street. And yeah, this cover is also giving me very spring vibes with the gorgeous flowers on there. So yeah, I'm hoping this will be perfect for this season. The next book that I'm hoping to get to has one of the most gorgeous covers I think I've ever seen, and that is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. Just look at this gorgeous artwork on the cover here, and the pastel color palette and everything is just giving me spring vibes. So yeah, I'm really hoping to pick this one up soon. This also sounds like a really fantastic fantasy book. So this is YA again, I think, and in this story we follow our main character Mina, who lives in this world which is ravaged by these really terrible storms, and her people believe that they need to sacrifice a woman every year to try and end their suffering, because what they're trying to do is help the sea god to find his true bride. And from the blurb, it sounds like many of the people in her village believe that this woman called Shimcheong is going to be the sea god's true bride because she's the most beautiful woman in the village and everything. However, Mina's brother is actually in love with Shimcheong, so when it comes to that day where she is fated to be sacrificed and thrown into the sea, Mina's brother actually intervenes and tries to prevent her fate, I guess. And from what I understand, Mina actually ends up throwing herself into the sea in order to save her brother, and she is the one who ends up going to the spirit world, and a fantasy adventure ensues. I think this sounds like a whole load of fun. I'm expecting it to be really imaginative and have a gorgeous setting. I mean, just look at that cover, and I can't wait. Okay, so I have slowly been trying to work my way through some of Neil Gaiman's books. I read Ocean at the End of the Lane at the end of last year and really loved it. It actually made it onto my top 10 books of 2021 list. And then I read Stardust last month and had some mixed opinions about it. So I'm really intrigued to see what I think of some of his other books. And I think the one that I will lean towards this spring, if I'm fancying a Neil Gaiman book, is going to be Neverwhere. So this is an adult fantasy book. It's a standalone as far as I'm aware, and I don't actually know a huge amount about this story. The only thing that I know is that we follow a businessman called Richard who ends up stopping to help this girl that he finds bleeding on the street, and I believe that that one act of kindness catapults him away from his work-life existence and transports him to this bizarre fantastical world that's hidden underneath London, which sounds so creative and so cool. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to this one, and of course I'm expecting the writing to be incredibly whimsical and also a little bit eerie, because that's what I've come to expect from Neil Gaiman. So yeah, I'm excited to get to this one. Okay, so if I'm fancying a middle grade this spring, I think the one that I'm going to be reaching for is Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. So this is the first book in quite a long series, and I've heard such positive things about this series. Everybody seems to really love it, so I can't wait to try it for myself. Honestly, I don't know a huge amount about the story of this one. All I know is that we follow a young girl called Sophie who is a telepath, and I believe that she's kind of struggled to fit in at school, and she kind of struggles to fit in with her family because of her powers. And then one day she meets this mysterious boy called Fitz, who also can read minds like she can, and she ends up leaving her home and traveling to this new place that is very different from where she grew up. And that's all I know, but I'm expecting this to be incredibly fun. I always love to have a middle grade in mind because I like to pick up a children's story every now and then to break up my reading, and I do just love middle grade stories as well. They're so magical and so fun. The next book that I'm hoping to get to is one that I actually picked up on the recommendation of Ali from the channel Allisonpaiges, because this was actually her favourite book that she read last year and she made it sound so good, and that is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujumera. I'm really sorry if I pronounced the author's name wrong there, but this is a standalone fantasy book, and in this story we follow our main character, who is a young girl that discovers this magical mirror when she's hiding out from school, and this mirror actually transports her and a few of her friends to this magical castle which is owned by the Wolf Queen, and the Wolf Queen ends up setting the children on a task to try and find these magical keys, and this key will actually grant the finder one wish of their choice. However, the catch is that as soon as they've made their wish, the castle will disappear forever along with all memories of its existence. This is supposed to be really, really heartwarming. I hear that it's got a gorgeous sort of like friendship dynamic in there, and yeah, I just think this is going to be really fun, and I can't wait to see what all the hype is about. Okay, so if I am fancying a science fiction this spring, I think the one that I'm going to be reaching for is Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. So this is the third book in the Wayfarers series, and the first two books in this series are actually two of my favourite all-time books. So I absolutely adore Becky Chambers' writing, and I really, really love this world and this series, so I can't wait to get back into it. What I really adore about Becky Chambers is that she always has this interesting way of exploring relationships and morality against the backdrop of sci-fi, and while her books do delve into some heavier topics, they always have a really kind of optimistic and hopeful outlook at the end, which I really enjoy and think is quite unique in the science fiction genre, which tends to be a little bit harrowing. So yeah, I really enjoy that about her books. The first book follows a crew of people who live on board this ship which is tunneling through space, and the focus is very much on the found family and the relationships and the different people who live on board that ship. The second book focuses in on two of the characters and feels a little bit more like a character study, and is a little bit more intense. And yeah, I'm not sure about this one, to be honest, but I'm just very excited to be jumping back into this world and seeing our characters again, and I can't wait. The final book that I have on this spring TBR is actually one that I don't have yet, but I have it on pre-order because it's coming out next month, and that is The Hunger of the Gods by Gwynne. So I read the first book in this series in January, and I did really enjoy it, so I'm very excited to get to the sequel. If you haven't heard of this series before, it is an adult fantasy series and it's Norse inspired, which is very cool. I did actually talk quite a lot about the first book in my reading wrap up, so if you're interested to hear my thoughts, I will link that video down below. But I think what I really enjoyed about this series is the setting, because it's set on Vigrid, which is this battle plane where the gods fell, and there are literal bones of gods like littering the landscape, which is very cool. We've also got mythological creatures, and we've got magic in there as well, which I'm hoping we're going to get more of in the second book. And yeah, there's also a lot of action, so if you are a fan of bloody, gory, hand-to-hand combat, then look no further than this series, because this absolutely delivers with the action scenes. So yeah, that is all of the books. Let me see if I can try and hold them. All of the books that are on my spring TBR. I am so excited for all of these books. I think they're going to be absolutely fantastic. Please let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you're thinking about picking up any of these books after watching this video. I would love to have a chat with you down in the comments, or if you just want to let me know that you're here and you're not sure what to write, please drop me a little heart in the comment section. That would be really, really lovely. And I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I guess I will see you next time with another video. Bye!